Hello, welcome to our channel. Today I have a very special and interesting conversation with Shehem Dalori, who is a representative of the Eritrean Afar National Congress, which is based in Canada. Mr. Dalori is speaking on behalf of the EANC today in reference to a recent press release that was administered through Eritrea Hub regarding the only Islamic school in Asab in Danakalia, which was shut down. The Eritrean Afar National Congress is an exiled Afar political organization dedicated to self-determination and self-rule of the Eritrean Afar people in their coastal homeland of Danakalia, where the indigenous Afar are subjected to marginalization, persecution, and ethnic cleansing at the hands of the current Eritrean regime. The EANC is the voice of the Eritrean Afar people, and it draws its mandate from the political and traditional Afar leaders, the leadership of Afar women and youth groups, the Eritrean Afar Diaspora, and refugees of the Afar ethnic group. I'm pleased to have Shehem on the channel. Welcome.
Thank you, George. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So I want to start with the press release that was issued on May 30th regarding the only Islamic school for Afars, which was shut down. Could you give an explanation about what happened, and then we'll get more into the detail about the Afar struggle in Eritrea, more specifically?
Yeah, this particular Islamic school was opened in 1970s when Haile Selassie was a ruler of Ethiopia and Eritrea at that time. And it was opened with the help of local elders, and they raised the fund for this school. And it's been teaching kids Quran and Arabic and things like that for almost about 50 years now. And it was help. It was just they opened it without help of anybody, and it was recently shut down by Eritrean government. Just recently shut down by the Eritrean government for just to control the education the Afar people are getting, and then basically to control their freedom. And that's what happened now.
Danakalia Media TV, DMT, reported the school's closure with respect to previous attempts to close the institution. What is the situation of the Eritrean Afars in Danakalia today?
Yeah, we all know the situation in Eritrea is really bad for everybody. And it's much worse in Afar region. And they've been arrested at a high rate, and they've been evicted from their land. And basically the basic human rights are being violated by the Eritrean government.
And I also know that the Afars are a minority group within the Eritrean population. What sort of discrimination or policy against the Afar ethnic group has the regime used?
Yeah, they have been actually, they've been, well, I mean, they deny the living. Afar, usually they live from the land and fishing, and also like a salt production and things like that. All those things have been closed right now. And in particular, fishing was almost, you could say, it was a number one thing. And they're not allowed to fish. If they do, they have to sell products back to the government with a lower cost. So basically, this has been done to basically to deny them living, and so they could give up and just stop the business of fishing. And the conditions are really, really hard right now in the Afar area, almost to the point of starvation in some areas, especially in the border areas right now because of the conflict in Tigray. There's nothing going on over there, and nobody can come in. and nobody can go. And so those things are affecting Afar at a higher rate. And they need help, is what I'm trying to say.
Are Afars allowed to cultivate or to reap in the lands that they own, or does the government take that away? Or how is the situation with respect to owning property in Danakalia? Because I'm aware that the government usually extorts private resources from Afar people in the area for their own benefit.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And they what's going on is actually, how do I say this? Yeah, the land has been taken away from them in some places. And I could give you an example, few examples actually. One of them is, I don't know if you heard, there's a company that's potash mining in the Afar area, and people were displaced from them. And they just had to leave. They just moved, and most of them ended up in refugee camps in Ethiopia. And Afar areas, people are moving away from it because the conditions are so hard for them, to the point where they cannot take it anymore. The children are been taken away from them, as young as 15, just like everywhere in Eritrea, for the military services, and they're participating in wars, which is like really not necessary, in my opinion. And that's what's going on.
The special rapporteur on the human rights violations in Eritrea cited crimes against humanity took place in the country in 2015 and 2016. What are some of the crimes that the regime has taken against the Afars specifically? We know that, as you referenced, the Potash mine is a way for the government to get profit. Does the regime, would you say that the regime is ethnically cleansing Afars from Danakalia?
Yeah, I think that'll be correct. That'll be correct. And what happens is actually they will take people in the middle of the night, and then they will disappear forever. Even in some villages, actually, there's a village like probably like 5 miles from Assad. Every man, almost half of a man, are taken prisoners. The government will come in the middle of the night, and they just took everybody, and they haven't been seen since. And their families don't know whether they're dead or alive and what conditions they're under. Some of them are locked in the containers, shipping containers. As you know, the Kali is very hot, and it's hard to survive. Even if you're locked in, imagine that, being locked in in the shipping container. And we live in a society with Afars in Eritrea live. We have a society with no constitution, no legal recourses, no courts. So if you get locked, you're gonna stay there.
You speak about laws and abiding by the rules of the society. What are some of the traditional Afar customs that you grew up with, either back home or in the diaspora population?
Yeah, Afar is probably one of the. I'm sure they had their own laws, and they settle differences by talking, and they have their own laws, and they actually had their own constitution. And they had courts, which is like traditional court, with, and then they had a rule of law, and all that is being taken right now by the Eritrean government.
Could you give us some of the background, like your particular family history? Like, how did you get involved in advocacy for Eritrean Afars?
Yeah, I'm actually because I've been here I've been in Canada for a long time, and talking to the refugees, and going to Ethiopia and talking to the refugees, I kind of got my own perspective of what's going on from just by listening to the people and how the conditions are. And I went to Eritrea in 2006, and I saw what's going on. And I was actually scared when I went there. I don't care where you come from, you're gonna be scared when you go to Eritrea. Soldiers with machine guns all over the street. I went with my friend to swim in the Red Sea. That's what we grew up doing. You know, I saw when you're a kid, you just wait until your mom and dad gets you out of the water. And, and there were soldiers watching us see what we were doing. There was only two of us early in the morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's a controlled society where everybody's scared, everybody's afraid of everybody. There's a lot of mistrust between afars themselves and afars and other ethnic groups as well. And this government has divided the people to the point where you can't even trust your own brother, or you can't even trust your own family member, because in order to save their life, they might give you away. Or, you know, I'm sure it happens everywhere in Eritrea, and it's a very, very controlled society where everybody is scared of the government. And that's what the conditions are.
You talk about trying to restore the family within the Afar community. Is there a way in which you have been able to connect with Afars in Ethiopia or in Djibouti? I'm sure there's many Eritrean Afar refugees who try to flee from the country into the Afar region of Ethiopia or Djibouti. What's your experience when dealing with that?
Yeah, we call our family members who are currently in exile in Ethiopia, family and friends that we grew up with, and they could they basically run away because it was also hard for them that they had to leave, and the conditions keep getting worse. No jobs, no way of making a living, and you could be arrested anytime for any reason and be taken away. And their kids have been taken away to national service, endless national service, and never-ending national service. And now we got wars on top of that, which is unnecessarily costing a life of so many Eritrean youth. And the young people are the future, and it's our very important resources. Eritrea is not a poor country. We have a lot of resources, whether it's like ports or but our most important resource, which is our young people, are really been destroyed at this by the current government. I could say that, literally say that.
What are some of the Afars in the diaspora community doing to solve this problem? When it comes to battling the regime, trying to help the family members back home, what are some of the ways that EANC or maybe yourself and your friends in Afar community, what do you guys try to do?
Yeah, we try to educate people about what's going on in Danakalia, and provide as much information as possible, like I'm doing right now on your station, and as well as writing articles and things like that. And ENC is doing I just joined ENC, and they're really doing a great job of this, whether in the United Nations or with the Canadian government or with the US government or the European Commission. And they bring in the Afar issue to the upfront. And I appreciate that people like you are doing, bringing us, giving us a platform to to educate people about what's going on in the Afar and conditions that are how we all have to join together and find a way to democratic future, and so our people don't have to live in bunches. You know, they have to leave the country and instead help grow the country, bring, you know, basically bring love, bring you know, trust to trust each other and work together for a better future in Eritrea is what we're trying to do. And working with the different communities, working with whether other African communities or whether Eritrean communities, we're doing all that, and Ethiopian communities, basically explaining how the conditions are in Eritrea, especially for Afar people. Afar people have been marginalized, like you said, and basically some ethnic cleansing of Afar people are going on right now. I can say that, and they live in a higher numbers, and they've been prosecuted at higher numbers. They've been jailed at higher numbers, and they've been denied living. They've been denied basic economic rights, and you cannot open a business. You cannot without. I mean, it's really hard. That's what I'm trying to say, and we're trying to bring that to upfront, and by coming in a program like this or other platforms as well.
So what are some of the ways in which people who are watching or those who may not know about the Afar situation can do? I recently visited the EANC website, and it says that you are willing to work with other groups within Eritrea. What is some of your history with working with others to help bring the situation in Danakalia to the top of the agenda?
Yeah, we're willing to work with everybody who really want to bring democracy and human rights and basically change in Eritrea. And we've been like I said, we've been working with so many different communities within diaspora communities, Eritrean communities, and we're looking forward to work with more. We look at forward to working with them basically, and hopefully they feel the same way, and we'll work with us.
Why do you think the situation of the Afars in Eritrea hasn't gotten enough attention? Because it's one of the ethnic groups which comprise the country's population. Have you been able to express your grievances in a candid manner? Why don't you think you've been able to have had the same impact in the Eritrean case?
Yeah, well, I mean, we need to be organized more, and we need to work with other, like I said, with our other affected, Eritreans are affected by this government policies, and we haven't been doing a great job, but we actually right now we've been working hard to just bring the issues to the front and to discuss the issues, whether it's with the UN Human Rights Commission or with other human rights groups, and basically with the other religious groups. And we're going to keep working hard till our people are free.
I'd like to turn our attention of the interview to maybe more of a holistic approach. The EANC, as I mentioned earlier, is an exiled group which works to restore democracy in Eritrea, specifically for Afars who live in Danakalia. I'd like to know what is some of the strategy that the EANC is trying to accomplish with respect to the goals that it set out on its website. The mission, there's a 6-point program I'm reading, and it seems like there's a lot of good information and goals, considering human rights, um, developing economic and social mobility? What are some of the things that EANC is trying to do for Afar people in Eritrea?
Yeah, we basically our goal is to bring democracy to our people so they can elect their own representatives and they can govern themselves and work with other Eritrean communities. And we're a peaceful, we do it a peaceful, organization. But we're under no illusion that this government will just leave because we protested, and we've been doing that for years, and we really haven't seen any results. And it has to stop at one point. Governments come and go, and so many governments come and go in the history of how far over the decades. And we're gonna keep fighting. We're gonna keep fighting for democracy in Eritrea, and we're gonna keep for we're gonna keep fighting for self-determination of our people.
So, for someone who may not be from Afar, could you give us some of the perspective of the Afar from the Afar point of view on the situation of human rights violations in Eritrea today? Most of the stories that we hear in Eritrea usually concern issues or instances that happen towards maybe the major groups of the country. But maybe for those that are lesser represented, those crimes are not as well reported in the media. I'm wondering, are there other examples of religious persecution, like the Islamic school, which was shut down? Are there any other crimes that the Eritrean government committed that you would like to bring to our attention?
Yeah, most of the people are prosecuted in Eritrea. I don't know, there's no freedom Eritrea. All the freedoms that we take for granted here in the West and most of the world, freedom of movement, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, all those things are denied to FARS. And it's much harder, I would say, for AFARs. Like we were talking about the closure of Islamic schools and detention in higher numbers. And all those things, you can just multiply it, and it's really, it is what the conditions are not really good in Afar areas. And, the borders are all closed because there's Afar society with the same culture and with the same background on the two, in Djibouti and as well as in Ethiopia. And the Afars have no contact with their some of them are like even family members on the other side of the border, and they don't have any contact with. And it is hard for the people of Afar, and their lands have been taken and given to the highest bidder, whether it is like their settlers in Assab and surrounding areas, which was some of it were taken and given to army base who I believe it was United Arab Emirates, and people lost their lands, and there's no recourses for that. It's just taken. Hey, too bad. That's it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the military base in Assab, which was facilitated by the United Arab Emirates. I know of the situation, but I would like for you to explain maybe more detail about what happened. When was it exactly? I believe it was in 2015, the Eritrean government signed a 30-year contract with the Emirati military to lease land in Assab to facilitate drone machinery and other mechanized weaponry to be used in the fight in Yemen. I want to know if you have any information about that. What's the detail about the situation in Assab with the military bases?
Yeah, I think I heard about it's closed right now from what I'm hearing, but it was it they basically provided the land that was used for salt production by some local afars and was given an air base to Emiratis. And, the people have no say on this. They were never told, like, the Eritrean government will never tell you anything. We know Eritreans have been fighting in Tigray. And I haven't even heard one day in Eritrean TV about Eritreans being involved in this war. So we know what kind of government we have. So everything is a secret, which is really not a secret. Everybody knows, but they keep it a secret. And they won't tell you, and then they just say, your land is taken. And Emirati base is going to be here. And, you just lost your land. And I don't know how do you feel? I mean, this is the land that was passed for generations from one family to another. And their livelihood is basically taken away and given to foreign country. And they have no input on that. And that's a sad situation that's going on over there.
Similar to the situation of the military base, we also know that the government uses forced conscription. What are there afars being used as forced labor in Assab? What's the situation like with that? Because I'm sure maintenance of the military base needs some sort of labor, and I assume the Eritrean government uses afar labor.
Oh, of course. It's just like everywhere else. I mean, the military concessions is basically it's basically slavery. You get in and you don't get paid, you stay there, and you work for free. They probably provide you with the food so you won't die, and maybe give your family some money. But I'm very sure. I mean, I'm very sure with this potash mining or any other work that's been done on the country or base building, like you said in Assad, and fourth conscripts are being used as a free labor, and it's like a modern day slavery, and Afar are almost equally represented in what we call Sawa or the military conscription, like everybody else, and they suffer the same consequences that everybody else suffers in Eritrea.
Well, as much as you have suffered, you've also contributed to the liberation of the country. I want to know, what does the Afar think about Eritrean independence? What were the contributions made by Afar to liberate the country? Because Assab is a very strategic area. I'm sure there's many Afar fighters for the Eritrean independence movement.
Afar, actually, the movement itself, it started with participation of Afars, and because they were not happy with the outcome of after the Italians left and the Confederation happened, and so Afar left in the greater numbers, and they fought for Eritrean independence, and they died for Eritrean independence, and they were represented. They were represented at a higher rate, and they died at a higher rate, and they sacrificed at a higher rate. But when we look at the government today in Eritrea, the representation of Afar in higher places is very minuscule. You could even say non-existent. There's no military colonels or generals or all those people. Some of them after the liberation, some of them died in the war of liberation, and some went to jail right after that for basically for asking for the conditions to improve for afars and for the people of Eritrea. And they pay with their lives for that, just like everybody else.
Yes, it's very tragic, and it's unfortunate that the Afar situation does not get as much attention. But that's also part of the reason why I was interested and I wanted to reach out. The EANC also highlights this in their bylaws and in their mission statement. What is it that the Afars would like to see in a post-dictatorship Eritrea with respect to human rights and democracy?
We want to see Eritrea that's democratic, that have respect for our culture, respect for our values, and respect for democracy, where everybody is included and where everybody have a say in going forward. And we will keep fighting for this. And sooner or later it will happen because people have a desire to be free. Everybody in this world have a desire to be free. And Afars are no different. Nobody wants to live under the conditions that's currently in Eritrea. That includes Afar, that includes every ethnic group in Eritrea. And we will fight to bring about the conditions, to improve the conditions to our people and the whole of Eritrea. And we will keep fighting till we bring this to an end and bring a new phase where democracy and human rights and economic growth and all that stuff. And we're gonna keep fighting. Sooner or later, it will happen. You know? And we want to work with other Eritrean organizations to bring this. And we're open to discussion. We don't have to agree on everything. But one thing we all agree on is the condition right now as the present is horrible. And how we move from this, how we move forward and then change the conditions for our people. And we welcome everybody's cooperation with that. And
So to switch topics again, I'd like to ask about the Afar population outside Eritrea. You're speaking to me from the diaspora. What are Afars doing outside the country to organize, in addition to organizations that I've mentioned previously, to do the change that you're wanting to see? Are there conferences that people can attend? Are there papers or websites that people can read about? What is the Afar diaspora doing outside Eritrea to make the situation better?
yeah, you know, we have Danakalia TV station, and then we try to improve on that, maybe bring English programs to it and bring Tigrinya programs and other languages so we can, you know, we can explain our situation to a broader population. And at the same time, afar, we normally would never leave our countries. And that's why you don't see a lot of afars in a lot of places. And I remember one time somebody told me, "Are you afar?" And I said, "Yes." And if afar is left, the conditions must be really, really bad. You know, there's that attachment to the land and to the way of living and to the culture that, you know, we don't live under any conditions. And right now the conditions are so harsh to the point that, you know, we basically can't stay there if you don't enjoy like a basic freedom. You can't even move between Assab and villages surrounding, and you have to go through roadblocks and a lot of roadblocks just to move around. And people just get tired of that, and and just leave in greater numbers. And we will try to explain the situation to the broader world, and we are trying, and we will keep improving in this, and we're going to keep going forward, and we're going to work with everybody just to bring the change.
Danakalia is probably one of the more interesting parts of the country. I wanted to know from the diaspora perspective, what is it about Danakalia that is so unique to the rest of the country? What is it about Assab that is very alluring or interesting? What can you say, looking back in your time when you lived there, growing up, how can you explain it for those who may not know?
I would say the first thing is the people and the culture of Danakalia. Growing up, we really didn't know who was who. We had people from all ethnic groups, and we got along very well. And we lived together, and it was always, under communist regime, it wasn't a good situation, but we made the best of it. If you can ask anybody who lived in Assab or who grew up in Assab, and they miss it. And the people of Assab and people of Danakalia is what makes it a great place to live in. Besides the environment, the Red Sea and the beaches and all that stuff, and the fish. I miss the fish too.
When we speak about issues concerning the country, sometimes we have to also focus on the problems that outside organizations may bring. Earlier in our conversation, you mentioned the Potash mine. Could you explain the situation with respect to the ethnic cleansing by the Eritrean government to do this sort of mining? I know that they were involved in several deals to make the mine essentially the profit for them, but they're using either slave labor to extract the resources, and they also are displacing people from where they used to live to make sure that this quarry is open so that they can continue to mine using foreign businesses.
Yeah, from what I understand, this is the Australian company that working with the Russian government on a potash mine. And in order to do that, they had to displace about almost like 10,000 afars who were for the area home. And they were, and they're not really profiting from it. The government is profiting from it. But the afars, besides being slave labor to the mining, and they're not really seeing anything from that, and except the displacement of our people from that location, and being driven out and sent to be a refugee in Ethiopia, in Djibouti, and living in refugee camps right now. And they basically lost their land, and there was no recourses for that. And we're working with other organizations to bring this to the attention of international community, and as corporations should actually, the corporations, I don't think they do their homework before they make this kind of deals, and I don't think they take into the account what their profit motive is doing to the local people. And so we working with the other organizations to bring this to the attention, and hopefully we will succeed on that.
Has there been any legal action against the mining companies that work in Danakalia? Have there been lawsuits or a way to get together lawyers or afar representatives to make a case against this?
Yeah, we're working with the human rights lawyers in Australia, with I can understand, and very soon the matter could be in course in Australia, and then hopefully there'll be a hearing on that, and they will see what the company's response is, and we'll see where it goes. But we're working with lawyers and human rights organizations in Australia to bring the attention, including slave labor and the people who've been displaced from their land and has not gained anything from it except displacement. So we're working with the other organizations to bring this to the attention.
Have there been other examples of this sort of extraction of resources or manipulation? We cited the military base in Assab. We've cited the mining potash site, the Kaluli, official name.
Yeah.
Are there other sites or other examples that you can think of that the Eritrean government is manipulating the situation and displacing Afars?
Yeah, Afars actually, Afars, well, they always had a good relationship with the other side of the sea, the Red Sea. And they will, what happened was they always did business with Yemen, and fishing was their number one export. They will, they would provide those Arab countries with, and that is all been shut down right now, almost shut down. And they made it so hard for them to fish at this point, where they're quitting, and they're not making any money from it, and they cannot support their families, and they just get out of business. And the fishing resources in the area is also, from what I understand, it's been exploited by, whether it's international companies. A lot of people don't know about this, but there's like maybe a contract or something given to fish and in the Red Sea water, and when the local people are not allowed to fish. And Afar has been doing that for generations, all the way from Port of Sudan to border with Djibouti and Somalia, and all that is been taken out right now, and the conditions are really tough for them, especially for the fishermen.
Are there industries in the Afar community that are unique to Afar? Like you said, fishing is very unique to the experience of Afar. Are there others? You mentioned the salt mining. Is that also something that's traditional in the culture?
Yeah, we had salt mining is currently been, I don't think there's any salt mining going on from what I know. There mostly Ethiopia, and the government, they didn't open other avenues for them to export their salt, all the things. And so basically that business has been shut down. All the machinery and stuff is rusted. And people, I mean, a lot of people made a living working in the salt, and none of that is going on right now. So that's one of the things. And then Afar also, like the Afars in Ethiopia, they're pastoral communities, whether herding sheep or goats, or in all days, wealth was measured by how many cattle and how many goats or camels or whatever you have, and like because of like a drought conditions and things like that, and the animals have been dying, and there's no support given by the government to facilitate this, and most of the people just left either in jail or left the country in total, and their kids are in military conscription and fighting wars that SAS deems necessary. So so that made it really really hard, and just like other Eritreans, we live in the country at the higher numbers, and we're not fighting back, and makes the condition even worse.
Are there any other experiences that the Afar have had to deal with that is unique to the situation in Eritrea? What are the particular issues that Afar are facing today? Because there are, among many different issues, Afars feel like they are being cleansed, ethnically driven from their lands. So I would like to also give you the opportunity to explain in detail what are the specific challenges that Afars are dealing with today in Eritrea, and
Yeah,
what is it that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're really, if I want you to leave, I'll make the conditions so hard for you that you cannot stay there. But I'll deny you a living. I'll take your resources. I'll put your kids in the military, and I will never tell you where your kids are. I will never tell you where your family members whom I took to jail, where they are, whether they're dead or alive. And that's like a form of intimidation to the people that, and that, hey, if you cross this line, this is what you're going to get. Or if you attack, this is what's going to happen to you. And the conditions are so harsh that, you cannot fish, you cannot produce yourself. And the ports, which really the Assad port is basically a ghost town from maybe the last 20 years. And you cannot leave the country. You cannot have any relationship, any cross-border relationship with other places. And it doesn't have to be just shoot everybody in the village and kill everybody and they will leave. But it's not like that. Some of it might be. But the thing is, they make the conditions so harsh that they have no choice but to leave or just stay quiet and don't say nothing and just accept the situation as it is. And for a lot of people, it's hard, and they have no way of fighting back, so they have to leave, and there's a lot of mistrust. You can even ask the person next to you to what happened to you and your family. And you don't know if he is a government agent or whatever. So they end up living in a greater numbers comparing to other places. Like I say, ethnic cleansing is in a different form. It's not. Sometimes it's not more, but just make the conditions hard, and then just take their land, take their home, and tax them exactly, and they will leave. And that's what's been going on in Afar. I'm sure in a lot of places in Eritrea is under the same situation.
Well, to close, I'd like to ask, are AFARs supported here in the diaspora population? Are there community centers? Are there institutions in the Western countries that are helping AFARs do some of the work that you are contributing to with the EANC? Where can people learn more about this sort of work?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, I mean, in here where I live in Western Canada, there's not a lot of affairs. We have a website where I will send it to you later on, and it's just the community organizations that we have, but for all the affairs and everybody. But especially in Toronto and in Ottawa, they're much more organized and there's much more. You can check the EANC site and then it will get updated regularly, I assume. And we also we're gonna keep doing. We're gonna keep providing information to other people and work with other communities. Is to our aim is to bring about democracy in Eritrea, and we will work with everybody, and hopefully we'll do that very soon.
Shehem, I'd like to give you the final word.
My final word is actually let's all come together, work together as Eritreans, as a people, as Africans, and to bring change to our country. And we don't, like I said, we don't have to agree on everything. Let's just agree on what we agree on and move on and try to bring a change for our people who are really suffering under really harsh conditions in Eritrea. And so let's all work together, forget our differences, and then, let's grow our country, is what I'm saying. And one day, maybe we'll have a coffee and by the Red Sea or something. And I'm sure that will happen.
I appreciate the invitation. Shehem, thank you for appearing on our platform today.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity. I appreciate everything you're doing to bring attention to the conditions in Eritrea. And we need participation of more young people, more talented young people like you. And thank you for everything. Thank you. I appreciate it.